It's time for the Chapter and Chatter Cafe with Camden County Library District Director, Professor Jim Paisley.
I don't trust him with that. All right. Hey, welcome back. Another edition of Chapter and Chatter.
That's right, 15th chapter.
That's right. 15th?
15th.
Wow. Time
we should have
flies when you're
balloons and
having
something
fun.
like that.
Yeah. Well, we got kind of an interesting topic today. We've had some issues last month with India and Pakistan. And I know right now, there seems to be another conflict over in that area that kind of waiting on developments with Iran. And I thought it was fascinating in that, I thought, well, India and Pakistan, surely they'll carry on a little bit with their firing missiles at each other, and then they calmed down, and things have seemed fairly calm at this point. But as I was doing a little more research, I found out that what most people don't realize is that Pakistan shares a border with Iran. And so...
I know when you gave me this, I didn't really think about how they all kind of fit together. But that's interesting. How many miles of border do they share?
I want to say around 600 miles. Everything's big over there.
Well, yeah.
And but it's one of those kind of twists and turns. But lo and behold, it turns out that Iran, they are Shia Muslims.
Right.
Pakistan is Sunni, so we get into that whole thing with different religions. But lo and behold, there's some of the Shias in Pakistan that would like to overthrow their government. And so, let's add a little more instability. So if something was to happen to Iran, then we'll go full circle probably back to Pakistan, where they're going to be battling their own little internal strife. What is it they said?
Is it internal?
Never let a good crisis go to waste.
I guess.
I think that's probably what they'll do. So I thought we could start off talking a little bit about the history of these two countries, which it's typical of the Middle East, and like all of the Middle East, it all stems from settlements after World War II. Once the smoke cleared, everybody's looking at one another and said, okay, who's good guys, who's bad guys, who gets this territory, who gets this, divvying up the spoils of war. Well, India, in August of 47, they created two independent states. Now, this is right after the war. India, as we know, was a British province.
Right.
Well, lo and behold, they had, a lot of internal conflict, people wanting their own independence as well. Everybody around them was getting it. And so they created two countries, India and Pakistan. And the partition, of all things, was based on religion again.
I was going to say, why would they split it? If it was one country under British rule,
right?
Why would they... And I'm sure it's not an even split.
Oh, no. And it being religious split, you had India, the bulk of their population is Hindu.
Right.
All right? And so these are the people that, cows are
sacred.
All right?
No.
On the flip side of that, a huge portion of the country was Muslim. Okay? And so, they're all about their own religious beliefs and, no pork and that kind of thing. So you got this huge conflict internally between these two religious groups. And so when it came time to grant independence to India, who gets to run it? And they battled back and forth, and at the end of that, several different wars took place, and eventually they said, enough. We're just going to turn around and create two countries out of it. And the Muslims, you can have Pakistan, and the Hindus, you can have India, which, there you have it.
That's what happened.
Okay, but just like everything else we saw at the settlement of World War II, okay, we're going to draw lines on the map, and then you all go out and everything will be fine, right?
Yeah, no.
So, again, it's kind of like we talked about before, it would be like if we woke up this morning and say, welcome to Mexico. We've decided Camden County is now going to be part of Mexico, and it's been deemed so let it be written, so let it be done. And, you know, is that going to stand?
No.
Right. And so that's basically what we have here. You know, you have to go all the way back to 47, granting the independence, and then, you know, the powers that be, the winners, decided this is how it's going to be. Yes. Now, understand this is happening everywhere.
Right.
This is where we ran into the problem with, you know, the Arabs and the Israelis.
Right.
You know, we're going to create an Israeli state, a place, home for the Jews. And the Arabs are going, wait, what?
Yeah.
You know, yeah. And
What about us?
right.
Where we go?
And this happened in Yugoslavia. You know, you had the Serbs and the Croatians and
Well, I guess it's kind of even like now between Russia and Ukraine because they're fighting over.
yes. Yes, you know
what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and
Just
so
one
now,
little area,
right? And
Because
so
they don't know who has ownership right now, or Ukraine has ownership, but Russia had ownership
the
of it
Crimea and the whole
Yes.
area, and you're sitting there
There we
thinking
go.
to yourself, okay, even when it's smoke clears and it's done, all right,
What is decided?
here you are, you're pro-Russian, but now you're in Ukraine.
Right.
And those of you that are Ukrainian, you've been there your whole lives, now all of a sudden you're part of Russia. This is, you know, and I think, you know, when it comes down to the basics, this is where everybody kind of gets lost. You know, they try and make this all too complicated. And basically what it is, you know, we've been here all our lives. You guys don't want to be part of Mexico.
Huh.
But if the powers that be come in there and there's a giant conflict and they decide you're part of Mexico, that's what you are. And so, again, you know, it's happened time and time again.
Right.
History repeats itself. Now, like I say, these guys have fought hundreds of battles against one another. There's been huge conflicts, literally hundreds of thousands of Pakistanis, Indians have been killed in these conflicts. Now, the first one was in 47. That's when they first started off with this whole idea, we're going to divide it up. And, you know, we'll do this diplomatically, we'll all get together. Well, you know how that worked. And so the next thing you know, they're fighting each other over who gets what territory, all right?
They needed a big get-along shirt.
Yes, exactly, a big get-along shirt. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? That would have been a great slide. You know,
All of them
have
crammed
them
into
all
one
jammed
team.
together in a little shirt, you know. Now you guys, you know,
We're going to stay this way until you
everybody
get
just calm
along.
down. Yes, okay, Mom, right?
Right?
Now, what happened in the 47 war, it ended in a mediated ceasefire. It really wasn't an end of the conflict, but, you know, everybody's like, okay, everybody go to your opposite corners and sit down, right? The second war took place in 1965, okay? And they flared again then, and of all things, it flared up over this new area that you've been hearing on the news called Kashmir, okay? Now, Kashmir is this little gray area way up here.
Oh, I
it
see
at
it
the
now.
top?
Yes.
Okay. Well, what happened was when they created Pakistan in the green and India in the gray, there was this piece way to the north, and that part there, they couldn't agree on who should get that. And so what they did is they just both occupied the area. And they've been fighting over that little chunk of land forever.
So again, like Russia
Yes.
and Ukraine over...
Exactly.
Okay.
And that, now the problem with this is that Kashmir really, there's really nothing there. But it's just a matter of principle, you know. I mean, it's a pretty place, you know. It's got mountains and it's got some agriculture, but there's really, it's not like it's
there's
got
nothing
oil
going on.
wells or anything. It's just, by God, that should be ours. And so these guys have been fighting over it. Now, bottom line to this is they fought again in 65. It ended with another ceasefire. Each time, it's not a settlement. It's just
Now,
a
do they just
ceasefire.
decide that on
Yes.
their own, or does another
No, of all
entity
things,
come in?
Actually, the Soviet Union came in on that one. Said stop. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. So.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, you know, you either stop or we're going to come in there and just take
Interesting.
the thing for ourselves. You know.
Oh, well,
Now, that's a great point because look where China is here too.
right.
I mean, all the major players are all around this thing. But, and again, if they had anything to offer, one of them would take it. But it's kind of like,
So why fight over it
why,
then?
yeah, you know, do I really want it, right?
I guess it's just the principle of the matter, I
right,
guess.
the Civil War in East Pakistan breaks out in 1971. And of all things, what happened was India comes in and says, okay, Pakistan wanted to take Kashmir, the whole thing.
Right.
India comes in there and says, well, we'll come and help out here to the people in Kashmir. Now, the problem with this is Kashmir, he's Muslim, the guy that leads Kashmir.
Okay.
But he's getting whooped by other Muslims. And so, of all things, here he kind of jumps ship and joins up with, he calls on India to come help him. So now you got the Hindus joining up with some Muslims to fight against other Muslims.
It makes sense.
And again, what I find fascinating on the news is okay, we've all signed a piece of paper, everything's going to be good, all right? Wrong again, all right? So now, as these weird agreements are coming together, everybody's trying to sort it out, right? Now, there was one more conflict in 1999. It was limited, kind of like the one right now. And here, Pakistani soldiers and militants infiltrated positions on the Indian side of Kashmir. And so again, what it boils down to is they're all fighting over a little piece of land that's really not worth anything. It's a matter of principle.
It's a matter of principle.
But underlying all of it is this religious deal, okay? Now, on the next slide here, what you'll see is that the Kashmir region is the focal point of the whole conflict, all right? It's that little area right up at the top, okay? And the two major conflict is between India and Pakistan. Now, as a result of this, it's typical military standoffs, people zipping in there, attacking the Hindus coming out, attacking the Muslims. It's just an ongoing conflict. That's what it boils down to, okay? Now, there was an agreement that settled in 72 that tried to set a peaceful solution. Another, here, sign this piece of paper and you all get along. Ain't gonna happen, right? Now, recent developments, this is what triggered us to try and talk about this whole mess. In April of this year, a terrorist attack took place in the Indian half of Kashmir, all right?
Okay.
And when that happened, these guys that are Muslim went in and they attacked these Indian tourists, okay? And when that happened, lo and behold, India, they got their hackles up and they decided, no, that ain't gonna happen. And so they retaliated. That was the exchange of the missiles that you saw, okay? So again, it's an internal conflict over a little piece of land, and yet they're lobbing missiles at each other.
Seems safe.
And we want to sprinkle a little something else in here. Both of them have nuclear weapons. That's why it's so important, because you get any one of them mad enough.
Well, right now, yes.
Yes, so this is going to be quite the deal. So as complex and big a mess as it is, just remember there's religious issues and fighting over a little piece of land. That's what it all boils down to. Now, I thought I'd give us a little history about these two countries, if you will. Now, India itself it's 79.8% Hindu. So the majority of the country of India is all Hindu. And again, the cows are sacred, so on and so on. Their religions couldn't be any further apart if they tried to. No way. There is a 14% Muslim population still in India, and there's 2% Christians. Those poor guys, watching this whole thing take place. They have a federal parliamentary republic. Now, it's kind of interesting because when the settlement took place, all of these people had only ever been exposed to being under British rule. So it's natural that both parties wound up with a parliament.
Right.
That they thought, well, that's how you're supposed to do it.
That's all they knew.
Right. And so both of them have a parliamentary government, and both of them either have a president or a leader, and then they have prime ministers, just like the British have, okay? So when you watch the news and you see this all playing out, usually what you're going to see is a prime minister from Pakistan or a prime minister from India. The leaders are kind of like the king.
Right.
There's like, parades, that sort of thing, right? Now, they have a cabinet. It's a council of ministers, and just like us, the president picks the cabinet. And they have elections, believe it or not. In both cases, the prime ministers and the presidents serve for 5-year terms. Okay, so there is a transition takes place, but you know how smooth it is. It's kind of like ours.
Yeah.
It goes so smoothly.
Right.
You know, right? Yeah. So basically, they have legislative elections. Theirs is a little different than ours in that they have a situation where the people elect the members of the parliament, and then the parliament itself is who actually votes on all the laws and everything. And they have it twice removed from the people themselves. In other words, the people get to pick their individual members for their area, but they're completely out then. They really don't have any say where the government goes from there.
Gotcha.
You want it out, you got to get them out of there, okay? Now, by the time the 19th century rolls around, in the 1800s, England was it. They were the supreme power.
They had the India Tea Company, the British India Tea Company. They had shipping. They had
called them the crown jewel.
Yes.
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 And so, you know, and they're still India's still part of the British Commonwealth, but again, it's kind of like Canada's part of it. They don't, you know.
They have no.
They have seats in Parliament, but they really don't have much of a say.
Right.
Right. Yeah. But the idea was for mutual protection. Okay. Now, basically, what we see happen here is. And if we can go to the next slide, Mark, there's been all kinds of resistance to British rule when they were the crown jewel. And here's where a couple of people pop up that you're probably familiar with. You had Mohandas Gandhi.
Right.
Remember that guy?
I recognize that name.
Yes. And you had this guy, Nehru, all right? You remember the old Nehru jackets? No.
Nope.
These guys do. I know some of my audience knows the Nehru jacket. You know,
This is a blanket.
It's this little trim cut thing with a collar that, you know, no tie, just a little stiff collar. You know, you guys know what I'm talking about, right?
Stand-up collar.
Yes, a little stand-up collar. Yes. Well, these two were the ones that decided we're going to gain our independence from the British. And they led just a large-scale protest until they got it. Now, what I find absolutely fascinating is that it was Gandhi who came up with the idea of what he called nonviolent non-participation. I love this, all right? You know, you got the British are in charge, and everything's right then, right now, this is what we're going to do, at promptly at 4 o'clock we'll be doing this, you know, and
It's tea time.
yes.
Sorry.
And so the people of India decided, what's the best way to drive these guys absolutely bonkers? Because we can't fight them. They got the biggest military in the world. They said, I know what we'll do. We'll just do nothing. Nonviolent non-participation. And so what they do, they invented the sit-in is what they did.
Hey, that's a better option.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. But, you know, again, it had to be fascinating because the British said, right then, you all break it up, you all need to go home. And here they are, you know, these guys, I don't think so. We'll just sit here. Well, it just drove them crazy, you know.
Right.
You guys go over there. No, I think we're just going to sit right here. It just, again, we're like, think of the hippies of the 60s here. I keep going back, but I mean, bottom line is.
Well, they had to learn it from somewhere.
Yes, but the sit-in, I thought
Right.
it was brilliant. You know, so basically, they continued to do this, and basically in 71, resulted in Pakistan becoming, basically, they split these things up. You had the two sections, but then what we saw happen is Pakistan itself split a section off with all of this nonviolent participation, and they created Bangladesh. Again, I'm old. The concert for Bangladesh. Did anybody remember that out there? I bet you some of you do. You know, who was it? The Beatles did it? Help me.
That's a Beatles song.
Yeah, they had a concert for Bangladesh, raising money for all the poor people in Bangladesh.
So kind of like our Farm Aid or.
Yeah. It was a Farm Aid thing. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's, you know, at the time, that's when all this conflict is going on.
Right.
Okay. Now, India's got nuclear weapons, like I say, in '98, and it emboldened Pakistan to get some for themselves, and so they wound up getting some, all in 1998. So in by 2008, both sides are nuclear armed. So now that changes everything. You know, there's no more of this. I don't think so. Now they say, well, I'll nuke you if you don't do what we tell you to, right? And so, you know, the Brits are out, and now we've left this to the Hindus and the Muslims to try and settle everything. Now, Pakistan. This is a strange one here. Pakistan, like I say, in 47, they became an independent nation. These are the Muslims who split off from India. They created a Muslim state for them, if you will. Now, when that happened, by the way, you can imagine everybody who was Muslim in India moved to Pakistan. Everybody who was Indian in Pakistan moved to India. So it's probably one of the greatest mass migrations in the history of the world. Everybody's switching sides and going to, you know, their proper corners, if you will, right?
Right.
And then they both got on their side and they went, glared at each other, and that's where we are today, right? Now, Pakistan politics, again, they have a parliament. They have their own military. Everything is set up, again, based kind of on a loose interpretation of British Commonwealth law. Religions, here you got just the opposite, okay? You have all of the Hindus in India, but in Pakistan, 96.5% of the country is Muslim, okay? Now, these are Sunni Muslims. These are the ones that say anybody can, you know, be leader of the Muslim faith. The Shiites, those are the ones that are fundamentalists. That's Ayatollah Khomeini and that bunch. They're saying it has to be a direct descendant of Muhammad, all right? Gotcha. And so, bottom line is, these guys are all Sunni Muslim, with the exception of there's about 15% of these guys are the Shia. So there's an internal religious conflict. This is what I was saying at the beginning of the show. If you overthrew the Ayatollah, he's the big dominant power over there with the Shiites.
Right.
But there's some Shiites, 15% of them there in Pakistan, that would love nothing more than to overthrow their Sunni government. So you just sprinkle some more stuff in there. It's like ragu. It's right, all in there, right? Yeah. Now, an interesting note here. Where do we get the name Pakistan? Well, in the early 1930s, as they're trying to figure out this whole division, you know, splitting these two countries, you know, what are we going to call it? Some Muslim students at Cambridge University, of all things, created the initials of Punjab, Afghanistan, and Kashmir. So Pak simply means pure in Persian, and then they added stan to it, which means a place of, or a country. So Pakistan is actually a combination of India and Kashmir, and combine the three words together, add stan to it, and it literally means land of the pure. Pakistan.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah, a bunch of Muslim guys got together and, you know, probably drinking a few beers, right? Cambridge, maybe not.
Maybe not.
Yeah, but you know, let's come up with a name. I mean, if we're going to create a country, you got to have a name. So that's
that's true.
That's where it came from. Yeah, you know, I thought it'd be something a little more, you know,
interesting, or not interesting, but you know, I don't know.
I don't know. I just kind of like, really, you know, you would think some military commander decide or something.
Well, that's like some of the things that you see over here. Why Bangladesh?
Yes. Yeah.
Or Bhutan?
Yeah. I mean,
where do those names
they come
originate from?
Right. You know, you always think it's going to be more complicated, but it's a bunch of guys sitting around a table saying, I know what we'll call it, right? Yeah. So,
you give me a letter, and he gives me a letter, and
we'll
I'll pick
deem it so. You know, and they all walked away happy. You know, but what I like about that, when they do that, then they had to come in there and they say, okay, I deem it so that we will call it Pakistan. Well, you've lived there your entire life. It was part of India. What do you mean Pakistan? What is that? You know, it doesn't matter. Again, people outside the room decide these things. So there you have it again, you know, which probably doesn't fly very well either. Now, slide number 7, if we could there, my friend Mark. The chief of state, again, they have a president there in Pakistan. They have a prime minister, just like we have one, or the British have one. the cabinet's appointed by the president, so their governments are set up the same. India and Pakistan, but again, it's because that's the only thing they know.
Right. That's what they've known since.
Yeah. Now, it's interesting.
British rule, anyway.
I have a good friend of mine, his son-in-law, of all things, he lives in India and ran a business there, and I was able to get on a Zoom call with him the other day. I'm trying to think of what's the place that has the gazillions of dollars over there? It's not Qatar, it's the other one. It has the islands, you know.
Emirates.
Yeah,
Emirates,
part of, you know, that whole area. Well, he called and, you know, on our Zoom call, and I asked him several questions, and just big ones that I was wondering about. Do either one of these parliaments have representatives of the other side? And they do. The parliament in India has Muslims on their parliament, and the parliament in Pakistan has Indian representatives. But just like here, you have a majority and a minority. But they do have representation.
Well, that's good.
They also have women in the parliament.
Well, I saw that. And
yes.
I'm not saying that it's amazing that they do, but it for that area, I thought it was amazing because what did you say, in 18% and 17% or something like that are of the cabinet?
Right.
But that's in Pakistan, that's not in India, right?
It's in both. They have representatives. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I thought, wow, you know, kind of interesting. Of course, how much say do they have, you know?
But how long have they been in there? Right, how much say do they have, and how long have they actually been a part of?
Yes.
Is that a recent development, or is that?
I couldn't tell you. But, you know, I thought it was interesting in that you're in a country where women have to walk 10 foot behind their husband.
Or they have to have their face covered.
Or their face covered.
You know, except for their eyes.
Yes, yeah, okay. Now, basically, what we see is that, again, they have an upper chamber and a lower chamber in these parliaments. They have, just like we have a House and a Senate, same sort of thing, okay? So, again, the point I'm trying to make is we're not dealing with a theocracy. You're not dealing with an oligarchy. You're dealing with something that supposedly works out as a representative form of government. Of course, we all know how this works, right? Again, 5-year terms, which I think is interesting.
Now, do either of them have limits?
No, there are no limits.
There are no limits.
No, you can be reelected
as many times
as you want, but 5 years. Then you're going to have to turn around
and run again. But that's a year longer than what ours is.
Oh, yeah,
4-year term.
absolutely, absolutely. Now, the next slide here. Let's go back to what triggered all of this. On April 22nd, there were a bunch of gunmen came over from Pakistan, went into Kashmir, and they killed 26 tourists in the Indian part of Kashmir, all right? Like I say, they've kind of divided it east and west, but they both contend the whole thing is theirs. India accused Pakistan of backing these assailants who did the shooting, and they launched strikes on Pakistan territory. More than 70 people were killed in that missile attack. And that's where we saw Trump and the rest of them jump in and say, everybody just calm down.
Right.
We all got nukes. We don't want any more of this. And they came up with a ceasefire agreement. And that's where we sit today, okay? They agreed to the ceasefire on May the 10th. And basically, the ceasefire is holding temporarily, okay?
Right.
Again, I think what we're going to see is, depending on what happens in Iran.
I was going to say that depending on what happens there.
Then all of a sudden, and bear in mind, you're going to have, if it triggers into a full-blown war in Iran, here you have countries that are on the same border. And so there's no way this is not going to impact them as well.
Right.
And I think the internal strife will spring up again with the Shia and Sunni within Pakistan, not to mention the fact that then you're going to have, you know, the division of who sides with who. India obviously is going to go with the side of the West, and Pakistan will go with the side of the East. And then we'll sprinkle in a couple other players, China and Russia.
Well, they've already, yes.
You know, I think just the other night I was watching, and they said that Putin has offered to come in and
I did hear that as well.
Be, you know, a negotiator. I'm thinking that's what you need. You know, have this guy come in and do that, right? Now, in the last conflict, both Pakistan and India declared victory. They both said, we won, and everything's calmed down again. But I got to ask, do any of you honestly believe that this is done? Bear in mind, this is 1947 this has been going on, and so now here you are, both of them said everything's cool, we're good, we've signed a piece of paper that you know, Trump gave them, said, okay, everybody's...
They're just going to fly under the radar.
Absolutely, right. And so, bottom line is, here you are with your brokered ceasefire, but there it is. So, you know, it's one of those, you know, this is one of our chapter and chatters where all I can do is give you the players and tell you where we're at and where they've been, and then you can figure it out for yourselves whether or not this is going to hold.
Well, as you said, I mean, with everything else that's going on over there, I'm surprised it's holding as well as it has so far.
Exactly.
I'm surprised that there hasn't been more infighting or even helping.
Well, and do you think, I kind of think those people over there got to be sitting there, because they've got all the information we've got, and they've got to be sitting there, sitting on their hands, waiting to say, what happens next? You know?
Yeah.
And it's one of those, again, like my favorite saying, change is good, you go first. And I think that Pakistan and India are both sitting there watching all this going, huh. You know? Yeah.
Well,
so,
that's the whole thing. I don't.
I think that's the whole issue, is that, like everything else that came about as a result of the settlements after World War II, where everybody just drew lines on the map and said, this is where you're going to be, and this is who's going to rule, and this is so on and so forth. It's one thing to put it on a piece of paper. It's another thing to make it happen.
Right.
And so.
And to continue those lines or.
Right. And I mean, throughout history we've seen this.
Yes.
You know, you've got the Protestants and the Catholics in Ireland. Here,
right.
Sign this piece of paper, it'll all be fine. No.
Well, that's,
you know. And here again, you have the whole issues with all of the settlements throughout Europe and really, literally worldwide.
Yes.
And so, you know, the one piece hanging over this whole thing that I haven't quite figured out is China at any point in time could put an end to this with India and Pakistan like that. They share a border there too. And if they wanted to say, don't do that, it'd be all over. But China doesn't really want it. No, like I say, there's really nothing there other than the fact that it should be ours. There was a little piece of Europe between France and Germany, an area called Alsace-Lorraine. Mm-hmm. Same thing. They fought over that for 700 years. And, you know, you still go there today and I'm French. No, I'm German. Yeah, you know, so there you have it. So, enough about the world conflict.
That's a lot to think about, especially like we've been talking about. It's, you know, especially with what's going on now.
Right.
I mean, it's been 7 days of firing back and forth between Israel and Iran, so that's kind of scary.
And you can see how, you know, you've heard just snippets on the news where people have said, what impact is it going to have on other things?
I've been reading that on some of the news sites that I've been reading on. You know, one of the things is, I can't remember which senator it was now that said that the Americans right now don't want to be involved in conflict. They just want better prices on fuel, food, housing, insurance, that kind of thing. That's where, you know, that we shouldn't involve ourselves there. But then, do we just let them go?
Well, and here again, think about how, in addition to the things that we buy from China, look how many things you see that have India on the label.
Or Bangladesh even anymore.
Right. And so the same deal. These conflicts where in the past we could have been isolationists, we could have just walked away and said, we're out. Well, look what happens. You know, and it's interesting because in the past, that's exactly what the U.S. has tried to do. We were 2 years into World War I and 2 years into World War II before the U.S. joined in either of the conflicts. And we literally got drawn in.
Right.
And so, bottom line is, it would be nice in a perfect world for us just to say we're going to sit at home and let them all fight it out. But we've become so dependent on other nations economically.
Especially after World War II when it became more of a global thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's I don't know.
Yeah.
It keeps scaring me.
Yeah.
Keeps you up at night.
All right, so let's do something cheery. Let's talk about all the neat stuff we've got going on here at the library right now.
We sure do.
Boy, I mean, all kinds of great programs. We've got people coming in all over the place.
We do.
And all kinds of, you know, everything from magic shows to critters from the Dickerson Park Zoo.
We do, actually, we do.
I mean, it's every day is something new. So why don't you lead us through some of the big things we're doing?
I can do that. So most of these are for like next week, because that's kind of the part of our summer reading program or challenge, as having performers in each week at all of our libraries. And so we'll kind of go over those just real quick. So, but we do invite all to come into the library and join us for hands-on experiments, to interactive story times, crafty creations, and surprise guest visitors, which we'll be talking about. There's something happening every week for everyone. You don't want to miss it. So here's one of the ones. You're going to love this one. So next Tuesday at 2 p.m. here at the Camden Library, we're going to have Jerry Tritz. He's with Minmo Magic, and he juggles things from bowling balls. Actually, he's pretty amazing, because he'll start with like a bowling ball, and then he'll throw in like a baseball bat or something smaller.
He's not going to do that near these windows, is he?
Well, he does it actually in our meeting room, and he does.
Yeah.
And then he'll juggle objects. I know in the past he's balanced a sword on his chin.
Really?
Yes, on the point, not on the hilt, on the point.
Wow.
Yeah, no, there's no way I could do that.
Yeah.
One of your favorites?
Yes, that ought to be a hoot. Yes, who?
No, he's going to do this, but I'm going to give you fair warning.
Yes.
He juggles fire.
Fire. More and more, I'm thinking he's going to have to be on the parking lot.
That's where he'll head.
Yeah,
he's going to be in the parking lot.
Yeah, you know, swords. I mean, I don't know. We may have to talk to the insurance company about this guy. Yeah.
He's bonded. Yeah. It's okay.
He'll be all right. You know, bowling ball,
he hasn't hurt himself yet.
Fire. You know.
Yep. Nope.
Okay,
that's
good.
Usually if we juggle fire, it's going to be outside. But I just want to see what your face would look like.
Oh my God! Now you see. I hope you all can feel my pain. Every day is something new here. Yeah.
So to take a walk on the wild side,
yeah,
our friends from Dickerson Park Zoo are going to bring some fine feathered friends with them.
Okay.
They have an owl program that is amazing, and usually what they bring, I don't know if they'll bring all 4 of the Missouri owls, which are the screech owls, the barred owl, barn owl, and then the great horned owl. But I do know that they'll bring some of them with them, and then they'll talk to the kids about what it means to be nocturnal, what it means to be crepuscular, so at twilight, and diurnal, so or during the day. So they kind of get a lesson in there, but the kids get to see the animals, and it's awesome. Jamie does a really good job. And that is going to be at Climax Springs on Wednesday, June 25th at 10:30 a.m.
Nice, nice.
So have you ever wondered what lies below our hills?
I have.
Rock.
Seems like everywhere you dig a hole around here, there's a sinkhole or something pops up.
Well, there's a sinkhole, or there's plenty of rock. I know our yard over here seems to grow rock. Every year is a good year for rock.
Yes, we're good at that.
But we do have a sinkhole in our backyard, a little small one. So far it hasn't opened up or anything. But we are close to where Miss Lindsay works, which is Bridal Cave.
Yes.
So she's going to be at the Max Creek Library on June 25th at 10:30 a.m. And she's going to talk about the many colors that you can find in the cave. Because you think a cave, you don't really think colors. You kind of think dark, brown, black. Right. But of course, you know, as you know, Bridal Cave has the underground lake. Oh, and it is a brilliant blue. Yeah. And then the sparkling formations too. So those all kind of provide a little bit of color. So she'll be there to talk about that.
Oh, that'll be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome.
So what about the Osage Beach City Park? What do you think's there? Or I'm sure you've been there, I don't know.
Well, I've been there for a few of the little local festivals, and I know there's a ball field there now, but that's about it.
Well, actually, Eric Gregory is the director of Osage Beach City Parks, and he will be there at Osage Beach on Wednesday, June 25th. All of our branches usually have events on Wednesdays, just that's why it's so weird to do this. Yeah. And he'll be there at 12:30 p.m. And he's going to tell us what all they're doing at the park this year. They're actually doing more things for kids and parents at the park. So like once a month, they hold a movie night for the kiddos.
Oh, cool.
And then they'll also have a bark park. So that way you can bring your pets in the evenings when it's a little bit cooler and let them enjoy the park.
Yeah, somebody told me that they created a huge area there for you to bring your pets to.
Yeah, and of course, don't forget that I think it's a 6-acre pond.
Yeah.
That you can fish. It's a catch and release, but
Great.
You can fish there as well. So he's going to be talking about everything you can do at the parks. It's just not swing sets and ballparks and things like that. There's other things that they're going to be having. So, and I think they're going to add to it as the year progresses, and even next year I think they're going to add more things as people become more interested in that.
That's great.
So,
aren't we lucky?
We are lucky.
We are to live where we do. We've got caves, we've got parks, we've got, you name it.
We got it all.
Yeah.
So how about theater?
The theater?
The theater.
The theater. Lay it on me.
All right. So you ever dream of being on stage besides this one?
You know, when I was a kid, I was in St. Louis, and we'd go to the Muni Opera.
Yeah.
Which, you know, that's where I got pretty much the opportunity to see a lot of theater. But,
awesome.
you know, I saw Carol Channing with Hello, Dolly. I got to
Really?
see Herb Alpert was there once, and his opening act was the Carpenters. I got to see The Taming of the Shrew with Richard Burton.
Yeah.
I mean, I was lucky in that respect. Tell me we're going to do something down in this area. I kind of miss all of that.
So Sunrise Beach has a little theater, and they always put on productions. They've done several productions, and I know our branch manager over at Sunrise Beach, Matt, he's been in some of those productions. He does a lot of theater work. So the kids get to go down there for our summer reading programs because they have a little bit more room down there for the performers. So Clint Walters with the Sunrise Beach Little Theater will be down there on June 25th at 1:30 p.m. And he's going to share with the kiddos what it's like to perform on stage. He's going to do a live action monologue with them.
Awesome.
And then he's going to tell them how they can get involved with the theater if that's something they're interested in.
What a great opportunity.
Yeah, so whether you're a future movie star, a curious creator, or just a love the thrill of live performance, this might be your chance to be able to get on stage and
that'd be
show
great.
it off. So.
You know, because I think that's something that we need to pursue more in the area here, to expose the kids to it, to see
that's the thing
what
is,
it is, and
it's a great opportunity for them because maybe I know Camdenton, the high school students do plays and things, and they do an amazing job.
Yeah,
but
do.
For them to be able to carry that on or even start before then, there's very few opportunities for them.
Right.
But this is one opportunity that they can explore and get involved in.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
That'd be a fun program.
So, the next
Do they
thing
need a crotchety old man in one of these plays?
well, you could always try out.
Right, because I got some here. I wasn't talking about me.
Ouch! Ow, that was a little mean.
Well,
you can't scare off the audience.
Well, yeah.
They may not come back.
Well, they'll be back. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So then, I know you probably don't have kids at home. I don't have kids
On
at
the
home.
weekends, I do.
Well, do they like to cook?
No, unfortunately. No, I find myself doing the cooking a lot, but no, I would love for them to learn.
Well, I think they maybe be told for this, but the Stoutland Library, starting June 25th, every week they will have what's called Kids in the Kitchen. And that's through the University of Missouri Extension Office.
Nice.
We actually do it here, and Osage Beach has done it. But we have Sherry Combs comes in, and she has easy recipes that don't require using a stove, not a whole lot of utensils, but that gives the kids an opportunity to learn how to make healthy meals, say goodbye to germs, learn about the 5 food groups.
Excellent.
Yeah, so, and that's every week, so they get to make a recipe and try it, so.
Really?
Yeah.
So I need to be up there about the time they finish making this stuff?
Right, so that starts at 2
Samples.
p.m.
There you go.
At Stoutland.
Yeah.
And,
Cool.
yeah, so
That'd be great.
that would be great, wouldn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Speaking of University of Missouri Extension Office, we do have 2 more programs with them this summer for sure. The first one is that for centuries we've known that the health of the brain and the body are connected, but now science can provide insights into how lifestyle choices may help keep your brain and body healthy as you age. So Della Miller will be here on Thursday, June 26th at the Camden Library at 4 p.m. to teach us about research areas of diet, nutrition, exercise, cognitive activities, and social engagement, and using hands-on tools to incorporate those recommendations into a plan for healthy aging. So,
Really?
Yeah, it's all, this one and I think the next one are through the Alzheimer's Society.
Really?
Yeah, so the Association for Alzheimer's.
So it's probably not going to be donuts and beer.
No, no.
Maybe, maybe I need to go, you think?
Well, you might.
Yeah.
It might be
All
fun.
right.
I don't know. The next one is Della will return here to the Camden Library on July 10th, and it's called the WITS Workout.
Okay.
So what it does is it is a way for adults to engage in lively puzzles, interactive puzzles and games that stimulate the brain and get those neurons working.
Cool.
And then she'll have different things you can do daily to increase your brain power.
Yeah.
I may need to attend that one.
Well, yeah. You know, I've always been fascinated with, you know, some people as they get older, you know, they struggle. Others, they have their own little tricks.
Yes.
My mom's 102.
I was going to say, your mom is 102, and she's still very active, isn't she?
Yes, and she watches Jeopardy. And
Hey.
it always kills me when you watch those shows, you know. I'm supposed to be fairly educated, but, you know, some housewife from New Jersey knows, you know, the author of a Spanish play that's
Was written
performed in Italy, you know, and I'm thinking, how would you even know that? You know,
Right.
Well, sure enough, my mom was like that. She could just click them right off. But I think that's key is if you can learn tricks that helps to stimulate your mind, and it's like I think it's kind of like a muscle. If you exercise it,
That's exactly what it is.
Then
Is
you'll-
what they say. Is
so
the more you
this'll be
exercise it, the
a
more
great
that-
opportunity.
Yes, it will.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are ways that, you know, we can keep active. Visit the library. You know, we have more than these events going on. Always visit our calendar of events. Everything is on there. Should be on there. Or speak to one of our staff. They can tell you what's going on. And let you know what's coming up the next week, next month, even 3 months from now. They should be able to tell you what's happening. So,
And there's always something new. I mean, it's pretty amazing, you know.
It
And
is.
and the staff here at all 6 of our branches are just tremendous at helping you out, be it research you're doing, something on ancestry. We have a lot of people come in and access like old newspapers that we have here.
we do have a lot of people that use the microfiche.
Right. We have, you know, it's not all just based on the on your cell phones anymore. You know.
Well, and that's the other thing is how much do you trust what you find?
Bingo. You know, believe it or not, we have these things called books here too, and
We have a lot of books.
yes, we have a lot of books. But it's kind of interesting. In that last night, I called into a local show here, and they were talking about some historical issues. And you know, one of the people that was on there said, "Where do you get all this information?" Well, the bottom line is your libraries. This is where it is.
And if you're looking for local history, we do have a whole section on Missouri history. We do have, like Jim was saying, we do have local genealogy things.
Yes.
That we have a whole cabinet full of that kind of stuff
even,
from family histories.
And every topic that we do on these shows, we'll pull books here in the library, have them out for you to take a look
Yes,
at. You
we
want to
do.
know more about Pakistan, you want to know more about India, you want to know about the settlements from World War II. We have information in all of our libraries that you know is great benefit.
Yes, it
and
is.
then if we don't have it, we're part of something called the Evergreen system.
Yes.
And that ties us to
70 plus libraries,
70
74,
libraries.
and there's always more coming on. I think we have 2 or 3 more Missouri libraries that are slated to come on this year, depending on other factors. But I think we've got some 2 bigger libraries coming on this year.
And if we don't have
So-
it, we can get it for you.
That's
But,
right.
There are, you know, it's just the world is there for you to explore, and
Take advantage of it.
We have a great staff that can help you do
We
it.
do.
So
We sure do.
you are not going to come up with a topic that we can't help you with.
Well, there's a challenge.
Yes,
There-
absolutely.
maybe that's what we should do is throw out there what's the hardest
Yeah.
thing we could find subject-wise or something. I don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
We'll have to turn that into a challenge.
Yeah, you know, but it you know, again, you can think, well, I can hop on the internet or I can get on Facebook and find out. And
well, of course, that's reliable.
And then you have, it shows a picture of Lincoln telling you all about AI, and I'm like,
and it's his voice.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it scares me to death.
Right? That is the scariest part of it.
If you have that book in your hands, it's hard for somebody else to intervene. So
that's right.
Again, please tap our libraries and our staff. They are all so knowledgeable. They can steer you in the right direction for just about any topic. Yeah,
yep.
Great.
So next month, our next Chapter and Chatter is on July 17th.
Yes.
Any thoughts ahead?
Well,
or are we waiting to see?
I had thoughts ahead, but now
that might be changed.
That might be changing. We may be doing it on Bunker Busters or the Koran. It's just hard to tell, what it will be this next month. But I think, with everything in a turmoil the way it is right now, I think we'll just wait and see what it's going to be. But I'll guarantee you it will have something to do with what the current situation is out
Hopefully
there.
something a little bit more lighthearted.
Something a little more lighthearted.
That's my suggestion, but I'm hoping.
Absolutely, yes. So, that it?
I think so. Right. Unless you have something else, I don't have anything.
I just want to thank everybody for joining us, and keep following us. And if you have any suggestions, by all means, contact us here at the library. We'll tackle any topic. Right?
Try to, anyway.
You bet. Thank you for sharing all the great events we've got going on. Please make an effort to try and get out to some of these things. I think the last one we had up at Osage Beach had over 100 kids show up.
Yes, yesterday we had Mad Science at Osage Beach, and we had 127 people there.
Yeah.
And actually, Glenda went out to Forget Me Not Horse Sanctuary for story time yesterday afternoon as well, or yesterday morning. We had 50 kids there. 50,
there you go.
50 people there.
Yeah.
So that's amazing.
Yes. Yes.
So
check it out. If you're wondering what to do in the summer, you get a little too burnt out there on the water. Come on in, check it out. It's nice and cool in here.
Well, and don't forget that we have our summer reading challenge as well, where you can earn great prizes to area businesses and make a whole day of it. Because I think we've got for the kiddos, we've got coupons to Sugar Creek Mini Golf.
Bridal Cave.
Randy's, well, that's one of the grand prizes, but for them to, once they reach their levels, they get coupons. And so we have Sugar Creek Mini Golf, Randy's Frozen Custard, and we have Pizza Hut. So you could get all three of those coupons fairly easily and then make a whole day, family day out of it. So, and I know that's what a lot of families do.
You bet.
Yeah.
Great.
So,
thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll see you next month.